Today, our time for wonder and imagination brings us a story by Gail Sphar that I have adapted, Amelia and Her Superpowers. So, Amelia was this little girl. She was an average little girl, and she noticed some things going on in the world that troubled her and kept her up at night. And one night, as she was laying there trying desperately to sleep, a fairy godmother came and said, Amelia, what is it that you're wishing for? Let me give you some of my magic. And Amelia said, Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I wish for superpowers. And the fairy godmother said, Well, I would love to give you some of my magic. And as she lifted her wand, Amelia said, Thank you, thank you, thank you, and promptly fell asleep. Now, the next day, Amelia woke up and she thought, Yes, I have superpowers and I can do something today about the world. And so when she went off to school, she saw Ernesto, the boy that she had seen every day at lunch, every day sitting by himself, a frown on his face, looking scared and lonely. She had noticed him all year, but she didn't know what to do. But today she had superpowers. So she thought, "Oh, I know I have these superpowers, but what's my signal? Do I raise a fist? Do I waggle my fingers? What should I do?" So as she looked at the sad boy, she waggled her fingers at him very intently. Nothing happened. So she thought, I'm not close enough. So she went closer and she waggled her fingers again. And he looked at her strangely and she couldn't help but to smile. And when she smiled, Ernesto smiled too. And then they laughed. And Amelia sat and had lunch with him, feeling very confident that her superpowers were working because Ernesto, the sad boy, was now laughing and joking and telling Amelia all about his life. And she learned that he had been so very sad because his father had died at the beginning of the year and they had to move and he had no friends and he felt too shy and too lonely to go up to strangers. Amelia was his first friend in a whole new world. Now, Amelia had noticed some other things at her school that she would have liked to change. Like she noticed Karen, this older girl, liked to bully these two younger children. Every day at recess, Karen would boss around the two younger kids and call them names, and they would do whatever Karen asked, and they were miserable. Well, today was going to be different because today Amelia has superpowers. So when she went out to the playground and she saw that Karen was being a bully again, she knew just what to do. And she waggled her fingers and she said in a loud, brave voice, Karen, stop it. That's not kind. Then she looked to the two younger children and said, Davy and Sadie, come with me. You'll be safe and I'll be your friend. And if Karen bothers you again, you should tell Mr. Crenshaw in the office. And if you need help, I'll go with you. And they laughed and played together at recess. And Karen didn't bother the children anymore. So as Amelia was walking home that day, she walked past the same old park she always walked by. It was decrepit. The playground equipment was broken, the weeds had grown up everywhere, and there was trash all over the ground. But today, Amelia had superpowers, so she knew she could clean up the park. She waggled her fingers at it, but nothing happened. She got closer and waggled them again and smiled, but nothing happened. And then she realized she could just start picking up the trash. Well, she was walking home with Ernesto, the formerly sad boy, so he helped her. Some other kids were walking by and saw that Amelia and Ernesto were cleaning the park and they stopped and helped too. Well, it was magical. The next day when they walked home, some of the parents stopped and got out of their car and started pulling weeds. And over the next few weeks, parents even phoned the city and started lobbying to get new equipment so there would be a park for the children to play in. By the end of the month, the park was cleaned up, kids were playing kickball in the field, and there was plans for a new swing and a new slide. It was awesome. Well, one night as Amelia was going to sleep, the fairy godmother came back to check in on her. "How's it going, Amelia?" she asked. Amelia said, "Oh, it's terrific. Ever since you gave me those magical powers, I've been changing everything. I've made a whole bunch of new friends, and now we have a park to play in. And these little kids that were getting picked on aren't even getting picked on anymore. And everybody in my house is happier." And the fairy godmother said, "Well, Amelia, I tried to tell you that night my wand was broken. I didn't get to give you any magic." And Amelia said, but I did all those things." And the fairy godmother said, "Yes, you did them because you did the holy work of showing up. You noticed, Amelia, and you were brave and kind, and you spoke up for justice. And that's why you started changing the world. You had the magic all along." Now, some of us might be thinking, that's a nice story. I wish that were the way the world really worked. Well, sometimes it is. There was a little neighborhood in Oakland, California, and they had this intersection. And at this intersection, there were some bullies that gathered. Not only were they doing things that were breaking the law, but they were doing things that put the neighborhood in danger. And the people were kind of afraid to go to that intersection. But one day, someone drove by and noticed that another person had put a statue of the Buddha right at the foot of the stop sign. This really happened. And one day, as that person drove by again, they noticed next to that statue of the Buddha were some flowers. And pretty soon, people all over that neighborhood started to build a little altar, a little bit of the sacred, right smack in an intersection that had been dirty and dangerous, that no one had wanted anything to do with. Suddenly, there was a Buddha statue, flowers, candles, some gold chocolate coins, little pictures of animals and children playing. And as this happened, more and more people were walking by this intersection. And so the bullies who used to do the dangerous and mean things there stopped coming. The community did the holy work of just showing up, and they changed their neighborhood. I wonder if you could have superpowers, what you would change. I wonder if you do have superpowers and you just have to lean in and show up. Thank you.